Welcome back to the IDP Plus podcast. I'm Johnny. I'm your host, and I'm here to talk to you about our favorite position in IDP. That is right, the linebackers. I have my top 24 early redraft rankings that I'm going to drop for you just in one moment. I just wanted to mention I will do a part two. My list is top 48, but this is just part one, 1 through 24. Keep an eye out for the video dropping in a couple days for 25 through 48. Without further ado, let's get this money. So for all my viewers, I am going to add onto the screen my stats, my chart here, my ranking, so you can see, go down this with me. I will go over every player. We're going to start, obviously, number one, top of the list, with, should be no surprise here, Zaire Franklin. If it's not Zaire, it's Roquan Smith. But for me, Zaire Franklin is just the model of consistency, epitome of the LB1 here in a loaded top 24, albeit even a top 12. So some insane talent here, but Zaire Franklin's going to stay at the top of the ranks for me. Just overall, not only does he do it with the tackles, as you can see, 173 combined tackles, an average of 10.2 tackles a game, which is the highest, of course, in the NFL. The only full-time linebacker that averaged over 10 tackles per game, so extremely impressive. This to us at this point, it should just be effortlessly. Seemingly he's just going to get these stats over the last 3 seasons: 519 combined tackles, 8 sacks, 26 tackles for loss, 9 forced fumble, 18 pass defense, and 13 quarterback hits. So anytime you can go for 160 or more tackles, get 3 forced fumbles, 2 or 3 sacks. This guy's hitting it multifaceted. You can see all the green I have here. Passes every test. 10, for 10 tackle or more game, 10 plus tackle games. Zaire Franklin just under half there with 8 out of the 17. 11 tackles for loss last season, which is about what we've come to know for him. 10, 11 tackles for loss. Still solid for a linebacker nonetheless. That's why it's in green. 3.5 sacks, impressive. 2 interceptions last year, and perhaps most impressively besides the tackles were the 5 forced fumbles. I mean, look, the whole page is green here for Zaire Franklin. EJ Speed's not there. Maybe it even could get a little bit better. Jalen Carley's didn't quite make this list, but will be someone that I'm mentioning down the line. Maybe he's not exactly what EJ Speed is. Maybe there's more room for Zaire to get better, but it doesn't matter. He's still number 1 on the list and should be on yours as well. Roquan Smith, of course, number 2. 2024 was his 4th season with 150 or more tackles. Another model of consistency here. Did miss a game, but still, if he was going to play that game, he would be looking, north of 160 tackles. Not too splashy as far as Roquan is compared to Zaire. 1.5 sacks, only 4 tackles for loss. A big tackles guy, not really much else. He might have some sacks and forced fumbles splashed in here, but not really the guy who's going to go out and get a bunch of interceptions or a bunch of one particular category. Just you're here for the tackles, and averaging 9.6 tackles a game makes it worth your while. Over his first 7 years of his career, he's had 21 sacks and 10 interceptions. So a nice clean average of 3 sacks a year, and as well as just over a interception a year too. So, not a huge playmaker, but that's not really what we're here for. It does help. A nice cherry on top. But Roquan Smith, he's entrenched in this top 3, and for me, it's top 2. So those are 1 and 2. Number 3, moving on, is Zack Baun. Man, look at this! All 28-year-old linebackers. They're flooded on this top 24 list. But another one with Baun, Zack Baun, terrific breakout season. To be honest with you guys, I did not see it coming, at least not to that degree. Thought he'd be a starter. Thought he'd be decent. Didn't know if he'd hold up. Boy, did he. Averaged 9.4 tackles a game for a combined 151, and also missed a game too. So you're probably looking the way he was rocking. Another guy who should have been over 160 tackles. as you can see, 8 out of 16 games, literally half of his games, he had double-digit tackle games. Very important stat to me. 11 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. It kind of looks like Zaire Franklin in the box score. Those two numbers match exactly. Only had one pick, but still solid for a linebacker, and of course 5 forced fumbles as well. So minus about 20 tackles. I guess you could say less than because he missed a game, but him and Zaire Franklin were almost the same kind of player. And as far as this year with Zack Baun, he's definitely earned this top 3 nod for me because he did this incredible pace last year with Nakobe Dean there. Nakobe Dean is probably going to start, not officially, but probably going to start on the PUP list. So a big knock there for Nakobe Dean. And especially for his dynasty rankings, but nonetheless, Zack Baun, maybe he's going to eat even more. So I don't know if things could get much better there for Zack Baun. The tackle, if we can get exactly what we got last year, we're happy, and he probably ends up, maybe you could say is the number 2 or number 1 linebacker if he repeats. Tough to repeat these kind of top 3 stats, but Zaire Franklin, he's done it. That's why he's up there. Let's see what Zack Baun can do when he steps up to the challenge this year. I think it's looking pretty good for him. Be confident in him. I don't see anyone really taking much, snaps or tackle opportunities away from Zack Baun. So after the top 3, it kind of gets a little bit greasy here. Number 4, this might be a surprise if you have recent memory in your mouth. Maybe you disagree, but Foye Oluokun, still only 29 years old. He will be 30 when the season kicks off, though. I'm not afraid at all. Last season had a down year. By all standards, a down year. But what kind of down year is it when you have 8.3 tackles a game? He's played 13 games, still totaled 108 tackles. Foye, the last 4 seasons, has been incredible. So let's really not put too much weight on the injuries he had last year. Not to say it wasn't all great play. He had some tough games here and there, especially for fantasy, a little bit inconsistent, but still had a solid year last year. I'll get into that in a second. I just wanted to mention over the last 4 seasons, 2024 included, when he just had 13 games. He didn't play a full season, but over the last 4 seasons, 557 tackles. That's an average of 164 per year on average. And as well as the tackles, he's also had 7.5 sacks over that last 4 years, 5 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 30 tackles for loss, 27 quarterback hits. Nonetheless, we are here for the tackles, absolutely. But Foye, don't forget, he is a playmaker in himself. And again, he was not healthy in 2024. I think he's due for a big rebound year here. I'm not too really worried about Ventrell Miller or Devin Lloyd. You can put, Jack Lambert next to Foye, and he's still going to get his, I believe. So this is somebody who might be majorly discounted. In other rankings, I haven't seen him really, push anywhere higher than I have him. So I'm a big proponent of him. This is a guy who was banging, getting 170, 180 tackles just a few years ago. So Foye, I think, is going to rebound here easily. And when he's healthy, averaging that 9-10 tackles a game, and he does it week 1 or week 2, you're going to forget about last year, and, you're going to think of Foye of how you always had. So confident here with number 4. Another guy, I'm really doubling down on the comeback injury guys, and that is Alex Singleton at number 5 for Denver, man. Alex Singleton, don't forget, he did average 10.3 tackles a game. He did only play 3 before he tore his ACL in 2024, but was on a tremendous trajectory with 10.3 tackles per game. He also had a tackle for loss and an interception in those first 3 games, although no sacks, no forced fumbles. That's okay. Alex Singleton's that kind of player. He's pretty much a tackle or die player, but he gets the tackles more often than not. And don't forget, 2023, 177 tackles for the same Denver team. Was on pace for 175 this past year before he tore his ACL. I know it was just 3 games, but literally 10.3 tackles per game gets you 175 tackles. So would I be surprised if Singleton got there? Not at all. I actually thought he would be the leading tackler in the NFL last season. Quite possibly could have had he not got hurt. So, I'm not too worried about Dre Greenlaw either coming over. I think it could make a heck of a 1-2 punch there. Maybe the best tandem in the league, to be honest with you, even for fantasy's sake. But I'm not too worried about Dre Greenlaw. I think he's going to have to more so prove it for me. I'm not really going to draft him probably too much in any leagues unless he really slides down crazy, which he might. He's coming off injury, didn't set the world on fire like he did in San Fran last year. So to me, Alex Singleton's a guy, maybe he's dropped in rankings because of Greenlaw, and that's great. I hope people are thinking that. I'm just going to keep pouncing on Singleton. I don't think you'll see him as high as number 5. I am a little bit worried, him coming back from that ACL injury. Is he going to start the year playing 100% of snaps? That's my only worry. When he plays 100% of snaps, we know who he is. We know what we're going to get, but will it be week 1? So keep that in mind. But again, I hope that's looming until game day and he plays week 1, because that's just going to drive the price lower. So Alex Singleton is somebody who I'm a big proponent of this year. Moving on to number 6, Fred Warner, who had, I guess you could say, a little bit of a down year, only averaging 7.7 tackles. But hey, this guy's never really, set the world on fire as far as tackles, consistently, that is. Fred Warner, he's had 130 tackles or more in 4 out of the 7 seasons, which sounds pretty good. Things are looking good, but 137 tackles is his career high. And that happened in 2021. That was quite a few years ago. I thought maybe with Dre Greenlaw gone, that Fred Warner could have even more room to grow, to eat, kind of like how I mentioned with some of these guys above. However, that just wasn't the case. Even though Dre Greenlaw, his 10 tackles per game, was negated, he was no longer there. Fred Warner didn't exactly pick up the pace there. They've kind of ragtagged it elsewhere. When Fred Warner, outside his position, Devondre Campbell last season, we all know how that went. This season, it might be Nick Martin, the rookie, although he, I believe, broke a thumb, so he's probably on the outside looking in now. But they have D Winters there. Maybe he can have a decent year next to Fred Warner. But again, Fred Warner, he could have done it last year. There was nobody really next to him. Devondre Campbell, I thought, was going to get more tackles actually, but he did not. So Fred Warner, I think, is going to have a nice rebound season. Don't forget, this is a playmaking king. In his 7 seasons, 10 interceptions, 10 sacks, 15 forced fumbles, and 53 pass defense. So this year, I think he can go north of maybe 140 tackles for the first time, really break the mold. But again, this is a player who's been around for 7 years now. I mean, if we haven't seen the breakout now, 150, 160 tackles, do we think it's really coming? So, 140 tackles, a realistic expectation for Fred Warner. Still a bona fide LB1, still a walking bomb, can go off with a sack, force fumble any given game. So I love Fred Warner coming into this year, even though he's knocked down a peg a little bit. Number 7, Kaden Elliss. Kaden Elliss has been a monster last year, 151 tackles. Career year, no doubt, for Kaden Elliss. Took him a little while to hit, but it seems like every year he's played, he's just been getting better and better. And I was a little bit surprised that 151 tackles with Nate Landman there. I thought Nate Landman was going to have a little bit more, tackle output than he did. But yeah, that's very impressive to me. Nate Landman's an adept tackler, and I thought he would have stole more away. So Kaden Elliss, the fact that he had 151 tackles with Landman there, now it's going to be looking like Divine Diablo. We are licking our chops as IDP owners. When we see Divine Diablo as the pairing. We did it in Vegas when he was there. It made Robert Spillane better because you don't have that high tackle volume second linebacker. And Divine Diablo was that in the beginning of his career, but is not that right now. So I'm excited for Kaden Elliss. I think this is a good pairing for Elliss. Certainly gets away from Landman. Landman goes to the Rams. So I think this could be the year that Kaden Elliss could actually match this. I don't think it gets any better. We're talking about a guy who played 98%. This is a key stat to me. 98% of snaps this past year, 2024, 151 tackles. Now, he had 95% of snaps, just 3% less in 2023, but had 122 tackles, so almost 30 tackles less. So I'm really wondering Can this all click? And that's another thing too. Kaden Elliss, we love him so much because of the sack ability. We see he has 5 sacks this past season. I believe he has, over the last 3 seasons, he's had 16 sacks. So somebody who's averaging over, as a linebacker, over 5 sacks a game. Very impressive, but we need those sacks. And that's the thing with Kaden Elliss. Like, I do think you will get those 5 or 6 sacks, but 151 tackles is tough to combat, tough to up the ante on that one. So I'm going to say I'm either taking the even or the under here. I don't think Kaden Elliss gets much better. So keep that in mind. You know, he's really creeping up the rankings. I see him inside top 5, but don't always get, you know, enamored with, you know, what happened last year. Kind of look ahead and, you know, try to make a claim for what happens this year. And that's my claim is it's just, you know, the stars align the right way, and I don't think it could get any better for Kaden Elliss here. Just a fair warning. Number 8, moving on, Daiyan Henley. This was a darling waiver wire pickup in some leagues last year. Dynasty leagues, you know, you're licking your chops. You finally got what you thought the whole time. Only 25 years old. Henley averaged 8.6 tackles in a full season last year. 147 combined tackles is what he ended up with. Perhaps the most telling stat was the double-digit tackle games. There were 9 out of 17, so that was absolutely majority. And some interesting things here, looking at his game logs from week 7 through week 15. He kind of, you know, first off, let me say, to start the season, he wasn't like a bona fide 100% snap guy. I believe it was maybe 94, 95 the whole year, but really started off in the 70s and the 80s. So I'm not putting too much weight on those first 5-6 games, but in week 7, specifically 7 through 15, those are 9 games, right? 8 of them were double-digit tackle games, and from week 7 to week 12, they were 6 straight. So very impressive, very telling stat to me. Daiyan Henley more than hit his groove, you know, in that middle of the season. Insane numbers there for us. But the only thing that I'm, you know, hesitant about Henley repeating this is, first off, at the end of the year, I believe the last 2 games, you know, this is maybe a reason why he's kind of a buy low. Henley in week 16, he had 0 tackles against the Patriots. I believe the next week in week 17, he had, I want to say, 5 tackles. And keep in mind, those were not 100% snap games, but it is a bad taste in our mouth. But that's not really my main reason. I'm willing to throw that out, but at the same time, bigger issue is Junior Colson is now healthy. He's looking good. Rumor has it, you know, around that training camp, around that team. So if Junior Colson can actually get on the field, stay healthy, and play to his full potential, I don't see 147 tackles there for Daiyan Henley. Keep in mind, additionally, this is a player who's great, who's, you know, coveted for his coverage skills, you know, in on the defense. So to me, it's like, maybe does he really get more coverage assignments, and Junior Colson can kind of be the guy to soak up those, you know, help and run support more often. So to me, I mean, you know, things were perfect. The stars aligned perfectly for Henley last year. I don't think things could get any better once again. And Junior Colson, this is not a guy to forget about. Maybe a sleeper we're talking about here soon. So Daiyan Henley, I love him. I still think he's great. Dynasty, of course, in redraft, I have him at number 8. But there is a little bit of risk to his game, to his profile. But I still think he's a fine young linebacker, and, you know, the stats speak for themselves. So no other linebacker went 6 games in a row, double-digit efforts. So to me, that holds a lot of weight, and I'm still backing him. Number 9, another young guy, and that is, you know, probably one of the hottest names to talk about right now, and that's Edgerrin Cooper. This guy, I've seen him go into a lot of people's top 5, rightfully so. So you look at the stats just overall, and they won't really paint the picture. I hope the people who I play with are looking at these stats. 14 games played. It'll tell you he averaged 6.2 tackles a game with a combined 87 tackles. However, let me see 85 to 95% of snaps for him this year, because I'll tell you what, he played, 50, I want to say 58% of snaps, I believe, last in 2024. And he was able to have 87 tackles and 3.5 sacks with 13 tackles for loss. You know, big thing for him is Quay Walker. Quay Walker was the starter last year, kind of eased in Edgerrin Cooper. To me, I think Quay Walker kind of fell out of favor right as of right now. The team did not pick up his 5th-year option, so he's on thin ice there, and of course he's not in this top 12 ranking, and Cooper is. So I think higher of Edgerrin Cooper. I think consensus does right now. Again, this is a guy who in limited time could ball out and have 87 tackles and 3.5 sacks, and maybe that there is we can't just double this number and say he's going to have 150 tackles and 7 or 8 sacks. I mean, something's got to give. Maybe if he is manning the middle there, that the pass rush ability is hindered a little bit. So maybe we can say 4 to 5 sacks. But I do think 130 tackles or more is definitely in reach here for Edgerrin Cooper. Maybe more, if he reaches his full upside. I do think this is a guy who absolutely, in 2026, we could be sitting here saying a top 5, top 3 linebacker. So Edgerrin Cooper, again, let me see 80 to 85 to 90% of snaps, I think is likely to happen. All signs right now, all arrows are pointing up for Edgerrin Cooper. The wheels are off. So I think that, again, top 5, top 8 finish is even in the possibility for Edgerrin Cooper, and just too powerful, too high potential to ignore. So definitely makes the cut. Could be even higher than this. Number 10, we finally get a vet here after a little bit. Jordyn Brooks, 27 years old. Jordyn Brooks played a full healthy season last year. Looked pretty darn good. 8.4 tackles per game. That checks out. Only 3 out of the 17 games were double-digit tackle games, and maybe that's something he can improve on, a little bit of the consistency. But still, additionally to the tackles, high tackle mark, 11 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Jordyn Brooks, the sacks aren't a fluke either. This is somebody who, has plenty of sacks, 9.5 sacks in his 5 years played. So almost averaging 2 sacks a year. Pretty impressive. Another impressive stat about Brooks is 3 out of the 5 healthy seasons he's had 140 or more tackles, and his career high is 184 set in 2021. So this is a guy who we're looking at 143 tackles last year, coming into his 2nd year in Miami. I think there's definite room for improvement there. I think maybe 150, 160 tackles with 2 or 3 sacks is my projection for Jordyn Brooks. Still 111 tackles and 4.5 sacks in 2023. And that was he played 16 games, but that was the season he came back from an ACL injury. Still 111 tackles and 4.5 sacks, and missed 1 game too. So Jordyn Brooks, we've seen him, come back from an ACL injury and look good. And last season he backed that up. I think actually things get better here for Jordyn Brooks, and the 2nd year with comfortability. Jordyn Brooks is going to have 150 or more tackles, so I love him, and he's down at number 10. This could be a guy we're saying at number 6. So loaded pile here, loaded top 12. Next guy at 11 is going to be Ernest Jones. Ernest Jones, poor guy, man. 4 seasons played, 3 teams already, but still excels amidst the adversity. 397 tackles over the last 3 seasons. That's an average of 132 with 5 sacks, with 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions, 22 tackles for loss. Jones's career high is 145 tackles set in 2023. I think he actually beats that, or has a great chance to here in 2025. We love this Seattle linebacking core. Him and Knight, I both love them. Both going to be great IDP studs, I think. So Jordyn Brooks, another healthy season. Ernest Jones, another full season for the Seattle Seahawks here. I think that 150 tackles is definitely in the possibility. He's somebody who showed he can be a little bit inconsistent at times, but still not only tackle dependent. You're still getting some splash plays here and there. And 13 tackles for loss last season, 3.5 sacks look at the wrong guy there. 4 tackles for loss and half a sack. That changes the game. Four tackles for loss, not really too much to hang your hat on. But half a sack, I think he improves on that. He's shown he can get to the quarterback more than he did last year. So let's give him a full season with one team and less controversy. And Ernest Jones, I think he rebounds here. So solid LB1. And finally, to round out my top 12, I have Jamien Sherwood. Jamien Sherwood, 158 tackles. 7 out of the 17 games played were double-digit tackles. Nice average of 9.3 tackles per game. Looking great so far. 10 tackles for loss, 2 additional sacks. And that's about it for Jamien Sherwood in the stat box. He did have 3 passes defense, but Jamien Sherwood, he did all of that most impressively on 93% of snaps. And I do think that's going to, obviously can't go 10 points higher. You can only go to 100%. But I do see Sherwood sitting in that 95 to 98% range this year. The games he had last year with double digits were not cheap, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about games of 18 tackles, 17 tackles, 13 tackles, did 12 twice. So Jamien Sherwood, he does have a low floor. There's games where he's only played the snaps, but only had 4 or 5 tackles. And then you have games where he has 17. So you're going to have to kind of, if it works out like it did last year, buy the dips a little bit. But Jamien Sherwood, I have no hesitation about. Of course, they still have Quincy Williams there. Quincy Williams, you haven't heard his name yet, but don't forget about Quincy Williams. I think he rebounds too. We'll get to him later. But yeah, again, with Sherwood, overall great numbers, but just keep in mind only 10 out of the 17 games with 6 or more tackles. So low floor, huge upside. Jamien Sherwood got a little bit, at least for fantasy, things to improve on, but still a top 12 linebacker. Before moving on to the number 13, I wanted to mention right now, if you are not familiar with the app FastDraft, get familiar, because it's right now it's taken over Twitter. It is taking over the best ball world, and that's literally FastDraft. If you like drafting fast and you like best ball, this is the app for you. Right now, when you download FastDraft, you can deposit match up to $50 with using my promo code plus Johnny. So if you want to, deposit the full 50, you get 50 back. You're sitting at 100. If you want to throw 30, you get 30 back. You're sitting at 60. But no doubt, if you like IDP, they have IDP leagues there. If you like best ball offense and you like drafting fast, then this is the app for you. Check it out and use the promo code plus Johnny to get your deposit match. Moving on here to the 13 through 24, my LB2s coming in at the top of the list here, 13. TJ Edwards, man, it's just a travesty to see him in the tier 2 section. He's been such a stalwart, and I still think TJ Edwards is. I think he's due for a rebound here, although not a career year. I do think a rebound is on the mend. Of course, he slid down the rankings. He was probably sitting maybe top 5, top 8 last year, but, we got to be real. He did have a down year as far as the, tackles go, 129 after back-to-back seasons with 155, north of 155, north of 2 sacks those past 2 years. So this was definitely disappointing, a bad taste in our mouth. He was down to 129 tackles. However, he did have 4 sacks and 12 tackles for loss. Those were both a career high. So, as far as the down year, yeah, definitely in the tackles department, but again, set the career high as far as tackles for loss and sacks. So, if TJ Edwards can keep that 12 tackles for loss, those 4 sacks, and kind of get us maybe 140, who knows? There's upside for more. TJ Edwards could get back to that 160 tackle season, but let's just say he has 140, 10 tackles for loss, 3 or 4 sacks. That's TJ Edwards. We know this is still he's sitting here at 13 in the DB2s, but really this is still a DB1 to me, especially when he rebounds. So I really like TJ Edwards, a good value here, and maybe he earns his role back in that top 10, top 12 mark. Moving on to number 14, Bobby Okereke, another 28-year-old linebacker. We only saw him in 12 games. Ended up having a back injury, although I don't think it's believed to be too serious. Averaged 7.8 tackles per game, which is a little bit low for him. 93 tackles in 12 games, but the stats were there. He only had 2 double-digit tackle games, maybe attributing a little bit to the injuries why the tackles were down, maybe not. But 6 tackles for loss and 2 sacks in 12 games. So that's the player we know about, Bobby Okereke. He gets the forced fumbles, he gets the sacks, he gets some interceptions. Big time splash play linebacker, and as far as tackler, he's big time there too. Out of 100 games that Bobby Okereke has been eligible to play, he has played 93. And one thing you might hear in the preseason is he missed games. He's got a back injury. Once again, I forget the exact injury, but it's not that serious. For a back injury, I know all back injuries can be tricky. Keep in mind, Bobby Okereke in 2023 played 100% of the snaps the entire year. Only missed 7 games out of 100 in his career. So very, sturdy to me. I hope that's what people are thinking come draft time, because I'm going to take advantage. I think the fact that he's at 14 right now is still a little bit disservice to his name. Love me some Bobby O, and I think that he's going to have a bounce back year and lead the Giants in tackles. And if not him, it's Tyler Nubin. Moving on to 15, Logan Wilson. Logan Wilson, modest year when you look at the box score here. 11 games, 104 tackles. Yeah, the tackles were low because he didn't play all the games. I mean, he averaged 9.5 tackles per game, which easily would have been his career high. I don't know if I have the exact. Oh, that was on pace for 161. So if he had 9.5 tackles every game, literally 161 tackles, he'd be on the tier 1 list. But yeah, health is a question there. Most impressively about Logan Wilson last year, 8 or more tackles in all of those 11 games played. So extremely solid floor for us for fantasy. We love that. And to me, I mean, if you have 8 tackles every game, yeah, you're not putting up, LB1 numbers week to week, but by the end of the year, I will call you a LB1 if you have 8 tackles for every game. It's an average, I believe, of 136, 137 tackles. So yeah, that plays in every single IDP league. Every year Logan Wilson has played, the total tackles have went up. Again, he was on pace to beat his career high in 2024, but got hurt. Can't change that. To me, Logan Wilson's a solid back end LB1. I'll call him an LB1 even though he's sitting at 15. That's how deep these rankings are. So Logan Wilson, rebound year for the 28-year-old, prime of his career. I'm backing him. Moving on to number 16, that is Robert Spillane. And perhaps this is a guy who you're saying, wow, I can't believe you haven't mentioned Robert Spillane yet. Pretty much simply because he's not wearing a Vegas black and silver uniform anymore. I'm not worried about age. He's 29 years old, still in the prime of his career. Had a tremendous career year last year, no doubt. Averaged 9.3 tackles per game. 158 combined tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 2 picks. It all was all working for Robert Spillane in fantasy last year. But again, he is not a Raider anymore. He is, quite frankly, a Patriot. And why I'm scared a little bit about that is because, I mean, first off, you'd have to go back to maybe 3-4 years ago. Juwan Bentley had a standout IDP year there, yeah. But before that, you'd have to go back to like Gerard Mayo, who is now the coach. And, while that was all fine and dandy, we looked at Gerard Mayo's, linebackers last year. The linebacker one, Jelani Tavai, played 82% of snaps. And, maybe not take that at a complete face value. There's a difference in a guy like Robert Spillane and Jelani Tavai. I know that. But at the same time, Jelani Tavai is still there himself. They still have Christian Ellis. They still have Marte Mapu, Luke Gifford. And these guys have been there. Maybe not Gifford, but the other 3 guys have been there. Granted, I don't think Spillane signed to sit the bench. We're talking about a 3-year, over $30 million contract. So he's brought there as a starter. But I'm just worried about, is he going to get the opportunities that he did, in New England, that he did in Vegas? And I don't think that's guaranteed. I understand the hype about Robert Spillane, but this is just a guy who, for the price tag, if he's going inside that top 8, anywhere like that, top 6, top 8, I'm just going to let him go off on somebody else's team. I'm not going to pick him. I might win, I might lose, and he might go off on somebody else's team. But bottom line, it probably won't be mine. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Moving on to my next guy, and that is number 17, Bobby Wagner, old reliable here. And the fact that, you can say, just going back to Spillane, he is low in my rankings, but I still have him above Bobby Wagner. I still have him above Lavonte David. You know what you're getting with these guys. And, Robert Spillane, I don't know what I'm getting exactly in New England. So Bobby Wagner, though, I still think is going to have a bounce back year himself. 34 years old, of course, no spring chicken. Average 7.8 tackles per game. That's the lowest marker for him, I believe, since 2015. And he had 15 games played in 2015. So not promising on the surface here for Bobby Wagner. He had 3 double-digit tackle games on the season last year. All three of those, of course, came in the first 6 games. So things were looking great there for Bobby Wagner at the beginning of the season. The tackles were on go, but really after those first 6 games, the stats kind of crumbled for Bobby Wagner. I'm not exactly sure. That's kind of like where I'm going to go from here with my research to try to find the answer to that. One silver lining I can say is Jeremy Chinn was kind of playing like a linebacker role there at times, especially in the middle towards the end of the season. So that could kind of be coincidental. Jeremy Chinn, of course, why it's important is because he's not on the team anymore. He's with the Vegas Raiders. So Bobby Wagner, come on now. You can't write this guy off. I mean, the fact that I have him at 17, I think it's disrespectful in itself. But again, such a loaded group of linebackers this year. But Bobby Wagner, don't write him off and him have whoop you with 140, 150 tackles, because it's going to happen. So Bobby Wagner, this team has I'm sure himself, number one, first and foremost, has Super Bowl aspirations as well as the team. So I do think this is going to be a historic year for the team and hopefully for Bobby Wagner as well. So I'm not too worried about Frankie Louvu next to him. That's great. Give me Frankie Louvu there and not Jack Sanborn, or Paul Puzzlesny, someone like that. Big tackle time getter. So I think things rebound here for Bobby Wagner. I'm not saying he's going to have 180 tackles, but he's definitely going to have, to me, more than he did last year of 132. So still love him. Moving on to another vet, Lavonte David. Played all 17 games. I mean, the stats aren't what they once were, but still, for a full season, hopefully that's all you can ask for is him to be healthy, because I think the rest all takes care of itself. 122 tackles, which was a little bit low for him. Only 1 double-digit tackle game. That's probably what we're going to expect next year. Don't expect 10 double-digit tackle games. It won't happen. Expect 1, and maybe you get 3. But the sacks, the overall player as a whole, Lavonte David, if we're talking big play scoring, he's definitely somebody who's going to get an advantage, a boost there. But, me, I like to cater my rankings here to tackle heavy. So Lavonte David does take a little nicks, but, again, if your league is generous to the sacks, to the tackles for loss, forced fumbles, I mean, everything else additionally, Lavonte David clicks in. So still a solid bet. You know what you're getting. They did not upgrade the linebacker position. There are no killers next to him, at least the way I see it. So to me, I think Bobby Wagner and Lavonte David, both of these guys, by myself, I'll self-proclaim it as getting major disrespect, but again, just attributes a great year for the linebackers here in fantasy 2025. Blake Cashman comes in at my number 19 linebacker. Had a career year by all stretches of the imagination last year. Sacks, snaps, tackles, it all clicked for Blake Cashman. He's the number 1 linebacker. We love him, of course, in Minnesota, and the fact that they predominantly use 1 linebacker sets there is juicy. It helps Blake Cashman tremendously. Health is always a question. He did play 14 games last year. If we can get 14, 15 games, we're happy, because guess what? In those 14 or 15 games, he's going to average those 8 or more tackles. Had 112 last season. If he can get any more than that, it's just icing on the cake. 5 out of the 14 games were double digits. 8 tackles for loss, pretty healthy. 4.5 sacks, very healthy. 8-pass defense helps too. Now, Blake Cashman, when you look at his numbers as a whole, not so impressive, but over the last 6 games was absolutely rolling. In those last 6, finished with 57 tackles, almost averaging 10 tackles a game there, with 1.5 sacks. So 3 out of those 6 games were double-digit tackle games. 5 out of the 6, those last 6, he had 8 or more tackles. Very consistent player down the stretch, and hopefully that's what we expect and get, in 2025. To me, Blake Cashman doesn't pick up a beat later than he was last year. So I think this is definitely a guy, household name, maybe somebody who's holding him back. But when we look at real life player and ability and opportunity to get the tackles, there's perhaps nobody in a better situation. So Blake Cashman, here he is, the LB 19. We'll call him an LB 2, but definitely has that LB 1 upside, especially any given couple game stretches. When he gets hot, watch out. Not too worried about Ivan Pace there. It's a shame that they don't play 2 linebackers, but that's more of a woe for Pace and a cheer for Blake Cashman there. So we'll enjoy it while it lasts. Blake Cashman's definitely a value pick. Don't see as much love for him as I think there should be. Moving on to number 20, that is Terrel Bernard. Terrel Bernard, 8 out of 12 games played with at least 8 or more tackles, so we can call him a pretty consistent tackler. Of course, the 6.5 sacks he had in 2023 were kind of an aberration. He regressed back to 1 last year, so it wasn't all fine and dandy. The sacks, of course, took a hit, but did have 2 interceptions in 13 games. So that was pretty impressive. And bottom line, coming off an injury-riddled season, when Terrel Bernard was in there, he did pretty well for the most part. 4 double-digit tackle games. Those 2 picks were nice. Overall, I think that he's not a 1-sack type of player guy. I do think that the 2 interceptions is definitely for real, and maybe there's room for 2-3 sacks instead this year. So Bernard, the jury's still out on him. I don't think the upside is exactly what it seemed to be that first year he hit, but I still think he's definitely the number 1 there. Even though I still have a lot of respect and Matt Milano is like an LB 3, I still think Terrel Bernard is a LB 1 on his team and LB 2 here for fantasy. Moving on to 21, Azeez Al-Shaair, somebody who definitely can be a huge value pick. I'm still in on Azeez. 2024, kind of like a Foye. I was talking about injuries here. Don't look at him, for 2024. Look at him before that. Not only were injuries the issue, Azeez was also suspended. Most people now call him a dirty player. I kind of have a soft heart for the guy. I've listened and looked up some of his interviews and his reaction to it. He really took that hard. So Azeez, I'm willing to forgive. And you know what? Not only in real life, but in fantasy too. I mean, somebody who wasn't healthy, who said now that after that suspension, he had like bad thoughts in his head. He was in a bad place mentally. So also what the stats aren't impressive by any means. 6.4 tackles a game. It's like, man, I'm trying to have sympathy and like the guy, but he's not really helping himself. Keep in mind, 3 of those 11 games were under 50% snap shares, whether it be mostly injuries. That was, the reason, because I think the 2 games he ended up bowing out because of injury. So 3 of those 11 games weren't really full starts. Just something to keep in mind. Also for Azeez, as far as the linebackers there in Houston, they have a lot of guys, a lot of options. Christian Harris, 2020, EJ Speed they signed, but there's no mainstay like they have in Azeez Al-Shaair besides Azeez Al-Shaair. So I think he's the one consistent, the one mainstay there for the Houston defense, and the other guys, they'll work themselves out. But as much as it's a beautiful mess as far as linebackers, I think they have a mess, but they have good linebackers there in Houston. Some people might be turned off from the situation as a whole, and I think it's a good opportunity to capitalize on Azeez Al-Shaair. And honestly, 21, is kind of low for him. I would say top 15 you could make room. Maybe not over Logan Wilson, but Azeez Al-Shaair is definitely somebody that has proven his value before, and I definitely do think that he has the potential and he will capitalize on it. So a guy who was just maybe top 8, top 12 last year, and now we see him past 20. So definitely a value pick. Moving on to 22, one of my favorite guys. 22 might not do him justice. I think, if he is deemed the full-time inside linebacker for the Cowboys, I think this is a guy I'm moving up inside my top 18. Jack Sanborn, I just love him. Seems like he's been in the league 3 or 4 years, but he's still only 24 years old. The stats, nothing to write home about last year. Kind of throwing this on there just for a good laugh. 17 games played, he averaged 2.1 tackles. Yes, that's true. Only had 35 tackles last year. 2 tackles for loss and a sack and a half there, which is something to hang your hat on. The stats were minimal. Jack Sanborn, bottom line, is he's somebody who, when he gets his chance to start, boy, does he, make good on it. In 2022, we finally got a chance. Not finally, he was a rookie that year, but we had 6 games to see what he could do as a starter. Everyone that has played fantasy IDP for the last 3 years knows Jack Sanborn. I'm sure they were kicking themselves if they did not pick him up, because in those 6 games he had 59 tackles in 3 double-digit tackle games, half of them. So pretty comfortably set. Telling, I think you could say, is that when Jack Sanborn is on the field 100%, or close to a full-time role, I'm expecting 8 to 10 tackles, and it doesn't matter if it's in Chicago, if it's now in Dallas. I don't care. The tackles always translated when he was starting in replace of Edmonds or Edwards there. Now you could say, if he had opportunities, if he was so good when he had opportunities, why did he not get signed somewhere, a big payday? He only got a 1-year contract. That's true, but I do think Matt Eberflus is a big reason in that. That was the coach who left, who is now the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. And I think, number one, it just gives Sanborn that ability, that inside track to start, because he has familiarity. But number two, I think that was planned. Obviously, he was brought here for a reason. Eberflus knew that there was something that was overlooked about Jack Sanborn, and I think as IDP owners, we agree with that. So Jack Sanborn, listen, there's 2 opportunities for him to start here. Either linebacker position, it does not matter. I'd like to see him wear the green dot. We know that's a juicy spot for IDP. Eric Kendricks last year is a green dot Mike linebacker. He had, in 15 games played, 138 tackles and 3 sacks. So Jack Sanborn, I don't know if he gets 3 sacks, but I think that 138 tackles in a full season, if he's starting, he could eclipse that, maybe hit 145, something around there. Who knows? The sky's the limit for this guy. 8 to 10 tackles a game gets you a lot of tackles by the end of the year. Keep in mind that they do have, the Cowboys are out with Overshown right now. Maybe that's somebody who, come Thanksgiving, Christmas time, comes back into the starting lineup. But I think if Jack Sanborn is given the middle linebacker job in the beginning of the season, there's no way he loses it. I just think he's going to, capitalize on that opportunity and will be somebody who you don't want to miss in IDP. So very high on Jack Sanborn coming into 2025. Moving on to number 23, that is another Jack, an older Jack Campbell. Crazy world we live in. I have Jack Sanborn higher than Campbell. But Jack Campbell, his snap count went up to 89% last year versus 59% in 2023. So we like seeing that. The tackles translated. He made 131 tackles last season. Pretty solid. I think there's room for improvement. 140 tackles with a couple sacks is, I think, what you can expect. And listen, we're on 23 now, and I just said 140 tackles and a couple sacks. That's back end LB1 number. So Jack Campbell, don't get it twisted. I still like him a lot. Just some great guys here on the list. Another hesitation I have about Jack Campbell is if he was going to hit this year, why couldn't he do it in 2024 last year, right? I mean, the situation was pretty much the same. We expected, Jack Campbell to be the LB1 there. A lot of people had him top 5 dynasty linebacker, but we still really haven't seen that yet. So that's another hesitation with Jack Campbell. I think he's a solid linebacker too with LB1 upside, but still, he has a kind of a low floor. I mean, there's games where he has, 10, 11 tackles, 9, 10 tackles, and there's 10 out of 17 games played this past year. Majority of the season, he had under 8 tackle games. So, similarly to Jamien Sherwood, I said he has a kind of a low floor week to week. And really, Jack Campbell does too. And one thing that need to happen for him to turn into this LB1 that we're looking for is the snaps. I don't know any linebacker ones, top 10 linebackers that are playing less than 90% of snaps. So that 89% was a good start, but we still need more snaps from Jack Campbell before we can throw him into that LB1 rank, for me at least. Moving on to number 24, last but not least, the third 24-year-old in a row, and that is Tyrice Knight. Tyrice Knight played 16 games, had 88 combined tackles. So, the surface level stats would tell you he had 5.5 tackles per game. 3 out of those 16 games were double-digit tackles performances. And this is all very important because he really didn't start right off the bat. He didn't start week 1. I think I should, have said that a little bit different. He started out hot, but he wasn't a full-time starter. He did get, I think, 2 starts in the first 3 weeks. But he did not play 100% of snaps. I think he was in the 70s, still had 8 and 9 tackles those first 2 games. But really what we're focusing on is the last 8 games when he was deemed the starter. The Seattle coaches were done with all the vets they had. They said, let's turn to this young guy and let him loose. And he played majority of snaps there, not 100%, but up in the 90s. And those last 8 games, he totaled 65 combined tackles. That's an average of 8 a game. So I definitely think there is room to improve as far as not only tackles, but splash plays here. I mean, Tyrice Knight, 3 games out of those 16 were double-digit tackle games. Very impressive in that limited time. 1.5 sacks, a couple pass defense, a couple tackles for loss. So we love the LB2s here in Seattle, and I think Tyrice Knight showed it last year. He had kind of his breakout late in the season, and I think it's definitely just like Blake Cashman. The last 6-8 games is going to translate into 2025. So Tyrice Knight, I don't know if he'll go this high in a lot of other people's rankings, but yeah, there's definitely guys that are going to be on my second list here, 25 through 48, that I had to make the tough choice. But Tyrice Knight, based on upside and the safe floor he provides, I think Tyrice Knight is definitely deserving to make this top 24 list. And that is all for my part 1. Thank you again for viewing and listening. And keep in mind that second tier, or I should say that second part 2, is coming out within a couple days. So as always, keep posted. Follow us on IDP Plus on YouTube. Go to idpplus.com to become a subscriber to our Discord. Get all of our tools online. And until next time, we will see you on the IDP Plus podcast. Thanks for coming out, supporting, and bless up.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.